I would say agents, definitely check them out, use them. They're going to speed you up. They can't replace you. And definitely don't be lazy. Don't trust them. They're not going to take your job, but definitely learn to use them. It's the literacy of the future. I'm Andrew Melnychuk Oseen, and this is SEO in 2026 Additional Insights.
Andrew, what's your number one SEO tip for 2026?
I would say adopt AI agents in your workflow. What these things are very good. You've probably heard them on Claude Code, plugging in with Ahrefs, SEMrush, all your data sources. And this is kind of the product I make, right? So also what this does is you have one tool that pulls all your data into chat, right? And so if you want to do things like keyword research and you have a lot of data to go through, these chatbots can now have direct, like essentially ChatGPT, Anthropic Claude, they can have direct access to your data. This really reduces hallucinations and allows you to move a lot faster. So for example, if you want to do like your standard SEO audit, you're going through a lot of tools, you have to pull a lot of data from different sources. Well, if you have your AI agent plugged into these things, you can pull all that data immediately and it'll know what to pull in. And then you can actually take an insight on the mass amounts of data from all your different sources. So it saves you a ton of time getting data from all your different sources like Google Search Console, for example. You know, there's a lot of analysis work to do. Well, the agents are very, very good at it and they can save you a lot of time now.
So are you suggesting that SEOs train up their own specific AI agents and they have each agent, I guess, focusing on one particular task?
So when you say training, I would say, no, you don't need to do that. Like training is actually getting, we'll say, a model and fine tuning the weights. You don't need to do that. What you need is instructions to be like how you actually would go about your work in the context of the client. And once you put that in as a set of instructions and you have it hooked up to the tools, the AI agent will go into Google, SEMrush, Google Analytics, whatever you want, and then complete your task, right? Now, I've talked to my clients about this and how they operate. You still need a person behind the wheel. So there's a lot of talk of, hey, AI is going to replace people. It's absolutely not. You really got to look at an AI agent like a supercharged librarian, right? And it just knows where all the information is and where it can get. And, you know, frankly, it can give you kind of an average response, but I really don't recommend it. Like you still need your professional expertise going over this data. You can just get your data quicker and then you can kind of assemble a report the way you want a lot faster to deliver in clients. So, you know, you can save more than half the time doing your normal tasks if you do it this way.
Now, obviously, you can use APIs or you can use third-party tools to automatically take the data into maybe one source. But are you suggesting that AI agents should have full access to the individual pieces of software that you use to actually access the data from?
Yeah, so you can do it a number of ways. So what we do is we have an agent that creates agents, right? So there's something in working with AI called context poisoning. Now, if you're doing, we'll say, content audit and maybe a standard SEO intro audit, right? You will not want to do those things in kind of the same step. You will want to create two different agents that do those two different things that maybe have those two separate tools so they can focus. Essentially, you know, you wouldn't kind of do those things at the same time. You do one step at a time. And that's how you structure your agents as well. So you can build an agent that specifically has the tools that you need to get the job done. Like say you're doing backlink prospecting of what a competitor is using, or you're doing competitor analysis and maybe you just want organic search results and something like Firecrawl to scrape their site. You can keep things limited like that and then you get better results. And that's kind of the job of, like, it's kind of a new skill set. Much like literacy started like in 1450 when we got the printing press, you know, everybody needed to learn how to read and write. Well, the future economy, everybody needs to know how to kind of, I call it like probability field shaping with these LLMs to get the results that you want out of them.
So you mentioned Google Search Console. There are a few other data sources. What would you say are the top data sources that SEOs absolutely need to be utilizing and providing their agents with?
Oh, dude, it's Google Search Console. Like, that because that's first party, right? That's the best concrete data for the site that you're working on. And it's genuinely amazing when you hook an agent up to these things, even when you supplement it with SEMrush and Ahrefs. But of course, a scraper like Firecrawl, so the agent can actually read what's on the website. But when you have a scrape and you have Google Search Console, it's genuinely wild to see an agent work with these different data sources. It's really a magic moment.
And what initial instructions should you be giving these agents to try and ensure that they're interpreting the data in the optimal possible way for your particular business?
Well, that's context dependent, right? So I was talking to clients about this, and this is kind of where it comes down to the job. So actually, I don't have an answer for this because it's all different, right?
Yeah.
Every context is different. You can say at the very base, hey, go into Google Search Console and get this data. So there isn't really an answer because that's where the expertise comes in. You actually, as a professional, have to build those instructions. But once you do, they're kind of set in stone and you can reuse them if you need to go back to them, right? So really what I predict is when people are using this and professionals are using this, they're going to have a specific agent built for their client that's using their specific data. You're not going to have one agent that does it all. You're going to need them specialized to the client.
Oh, when you talk about these agents, obviously you've conventional LLMs. Everyone's using Gemini or Claude or ChatGPT maybe. Are there any go-to LLMs or types of agents that you would recommend?
So when you say type of agent, agents are really an LLM that have a simple wrapper around them that does a tool call. It's called tool calling. So that allows it to reach into Google Search Console, Ahrefs, SEMrush, Google Keywords, whatever it is. It can call a computer program and get the results back. Much like you just go into those services and get the data yourself, the agent can do that. So agents are really kind of this one general thing. So they're just an agent that has tool calling and they're going to have different tools. It's kind of remarkable. I would look at an agent as what the web browser was for the internet. The agent is for the LLM. It allows you to browse the probability field and shape it to get your answers a lot faster. So an agent's just a thing. The LLMs, you're going to adjust based on your cost and your task, right? And this is kind of where the skill comes in running it. It's like sometimes you don't need Opus 4.6, which is really expensive and really good to do a task, right? Like if you just want to maybe scrape a competitor's website, get a content audit on them, you just need a cheaper model to get that data from you. And then once you get that data, then you switch to Claude Opus, and then you're like, okay, what insights are here? And then, the frontier models are really good at analysis, but that's part of the new job is picking the right model for the right job. And an agent harness wraps any model. So you can flip them out. It doesn't matter, about really the model so much. And actually the agents you can tell them to pick their model and they're going to just switch their brain. Imagine if you could just pop your brain out and switch your brain with another brain. That's what these agents can kind of do.
That's I love that piece of advice. So get the agent to actually select the right model, because obviously there are quite a few different models out there.
Yeah, 150.
Wow, yeah, and the go-to thing initially is for people getting started is probably just to select the most expensive, best model, but that's not used or required.
Yeah, you're wasting money.
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah, because we're going to a usage-based world, right? So, and even learning how to set up a local model, right? It's going to be slower, but it's not costing you money.
What about hallucinations? Is that still a problem? Because it used to be talked about a lot maybe a couple of years ago in chat. Will these agents, LLMs, actually hallucinate based on your own data?
Yeah, so that comes from the compression of the LLM of basically there's this overlap in the actual tokens in the essentially the hyperdimensional space of the LLM, right? So those aren't really going away. So you have to come up with techniques to reduce them. and pulling in live data like from Google Search Console, Ahrefs, SEMrush, that really reduces them. You still need to check, like you still need to be a professional, right? You got to check your data source, like did it copy? There are techniques that agents have, like we have chain of verification, right? So we have some special tools that they reduce hallucinations by 98%. And they're pretty straightforward, but it's like just a step where it's like you have your agent go pull some data. And then what you do is you have another agent say, hey, can you construct questions about this data? And then you have these two agents that kind of go back and forth, like they generate the questions and you'll ask the question and then the agent will answer the question. You kind of create these verifiers and then the agent will verify and that strengthens your context and then you get less hallucinations, right? Significantly. But you don't want to get lazy. You do want to like, hey, pull this data in, right? And what our tool does is pulls the live data in so you can look and you can see, hey, is there a discrepancy with this data? So you do want that human verification. You're never going to be able to get rid of that responsibility, but you can get hallucinations down lower.
Brilliant. And you talked about an SEO making a mistake by not selecting the right model. Are there any other key mistakes that you see SEOs making in this process and something that you'd like to highlight and they can rectify?
Yeah, so the general thing I would say is what I see. So I've seen some clients use our product is they kind of just will type something in. It's more the younger guys that are doing the less experienced folks. They drop something in, they get an answer, they take it, and then off they go because they got to get a job done. They got to get rushed. They're not being disciplined of being like, hey, wait, I'm going to go over this. I'm going to ask questions, right? You can sit down with an LLM and like literally ask it questions. Like when it gives you back an answer, you can go to the agent and be like, hey, how'd you arrive to that conclusion? Wait, no, you need to go check this. And next time you come in with this information, use like the Ask Human tool and check with me before you proceed, right? And so it's kind of like building these workflows of like where to check, how to check to get a result. But, you still need to get work in that talk of like AI agents and AI is going to replace people. That's not happening. Like, I sell this stuff. It's against my narrative to go out there and say, hey, if you buy my product, you can replace everybody. I'd make a ton of money. And the frontier models are doing that, but it's not true. Like it is not, you're going to get some productivity boosts and it's genuinely amazing when you do, but it is not replacing people.
What's the end result that clients are looking for here in terms of direction? How often are they looking for reports and strategic advice? And what does it visually look like?
So basically, it kicks out a report, right? So this is the first step. You can run an analysis a lot faster. So we have people that don't know how to use the software. An audit takes them about 4 hours. They learned the software and got the result back, which was comparable, just as good from 4 hours and 2.5. And then now they can just basically run it again and they instantly get it. So they can schedule that report consistently and immediately get the report back. Now, still, like I said, you should check these things when they're done. But once you build that up, you just hit a button and then away you go. You record like basically a set of steps to do, and you can just execute those. Those are called agent skills.
And you talked about the fact that humans aren't getting replaced here.
No, that's just not happening.
Are there any tasks that humans should absolutely be doing and data that humans should be analyzing as opposed to letting the LLMs do it?
Yeah, so the landscape's always changing, right? And the important thing to understand about an LLM, its information can be up to months old, right? And so as fast as the space changes, the LLM is not going to have the latest strategies and capabilities of what it needs to do. So that's where it takes the professional like maintenance and instruction and guidance to make sure that the agent's doing what you want. Because like if Google does an update, right, as Google does, that information is not in an LLM. So if it's operating on the old way, you're going to get old results and they're not going to be accurate. So this is the thing, the LLMs just don't continually update, but a human certainly can.
That's a great point. And you also say that AI isn't going to replace human judgment. So what does human judgment look like in practice?
Yeah, that's the thing. Like a human being, when you talk about intelligence, we learn like on the fly, pretty much. To get into our long-term memory, yeah, you got to go to sleep, for, high-level concepts to really sink in. But, we can look at something and learn instantly. An LLM cannot do that at all. There's no intelligence in these systems. They're really good new information infrastructure. They're the equivalent of a encyclopedia, pretty much.
Andrew, what's the key takeaway from the tip you shared today?
I would say agents, definitely check them out, use them. They're going to speed you up. They can't replace you. And definitely don't be lazy. Don't trust them. They're not going to take your job, but definitely learn to use them. It's the literacy of the future.
Andrew Melnychuk Oseen is founder at SagaSolve. Find out more over at sagasolve.com. Andrew, thanks so much for being part of SEO in 2026.
Thanks a lot, David. I really appreciate the talk.
I've been your host, David Bain. Get your copy of SEO in 2026, the book, over at SEOin2026.com.